All right, good afternoon. Here we go. Mississippi Outdoors Radio each and every Monday at noontime here. Part of the JT Show here on Super Talk Mississippi. Glad to have them in here. Hey, we got the Deer Gurus in here too today, y'all, so you want to make sure that you hang on and listen intently for the next hour. Brought to you by the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. As always, Mississippi Outdoors Radio. Adam Butler here with us, wildlife biologist. Good afternoon, sir.
Glad to be here, JT. Big week.
Yep.
It's that week everybody's looking forward to all year.
Major Chris Reed here, law enforcement. Good morning or good afternoon.
Who?
And
like that?
Will McKinley here with us, Deer Program Coordinator.
Hey, JT.
And y'all even brought Russ in here. Russ Walsh up in here, the Chief of Wildlife. How are you, Russ?
Every once in a while they let me out. Today was one of those days. So good to be here.
We're glad to have you, man. We're going to be I actually had a question earlier today about CWD back earlier in the part of the program, so we'll address that in a little bit and get to talk about that. Big dedication for Governor Phil Bryant, the Phil Bryant WMA. It was underwater not too long ago, but now it's out there ready to go.
Yeah, that happened last week, and it was a long time coming. A lot of our folks had a lot of long days getting everything ready to go, but. Certainly a great day for a great man, done a lot for conservation in this state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be, we're going to talk more about it here in a couple of weeks, JT. We're going to have a show where we focus a little bit more on what all that new WMA has to offer. But I think it will be one that the hunters of this state will really appreciate for generations to come. I don't know. Russ was there. I don't know if he wants any firsthand accounts of it, but real special event for sure.
It's supposed to open December 1st, Russ?
That's right.
I was just looking at the gauges at Still Bayou, and it was a little high after all the rain we had a few weeks ago, but it's dropped back out to like 78, 79 feet. So the reason I mention that is that management area is set to close if Still Bayou gets to 82 feet, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're hoping the water keeps coming down and
right.
and stays that way so we can get it open.
There's a lot of history in those woods that are included in that management area. A lot of history, a lot of stories, and the opportunity. I watched some of the speech that the governor gave, and it's an opportunity for people to make memories for forever now because it's a public resource and public asset. So that's a good deal there.
Yeah, about 100 people there. Russ and I were talking about it on the way
Pretty
over
day.
here.
It was a little cold. I think that was the day it got down to like 20 at night, but that's perfect for dedicating a hunting place for it to be cold. We wouldn't want it to be hot.
Speaking of WMA, the mobile check-in app, we want to remind folks it's a way to simplify your life, make it a little bit easier for you.
Absolutely, JT. I mean, we've been talking about that for a couple of months now, and now that hunting season is really about to kick off in full swing, want to continue to remind people about that app. Look, use it. It's a convenience. It's going to make your life a lot simpler. You don't have to drive all over the WMA to find a car to check in. You can do it right there on your phone, and we've tried to make that easy. It can be done really quick. Once you set the profile up, probably best to do that at home or somewhere where you've got good internet service to set your profile up, and then after that you can run it without a phone signal. So that's one we want to keep hitting. Also, waterfowl stuff coming up. The second round of waterfowl draws are now open. The first round, I think, closed last week. So if you put in for that and were selected, you should have gotten an email. And we're going to talk about deer today, JT. But duck season's coming right behind the deer opener. Our waterfowl program guys are out today doing their aerial surveys, flying around low and slow in the little plane. And they've been doing that a couple of days last week and finishing it up today. I think they did a couple of days last week and finishing the surveys today. So we should have, maybe by next Monday, hope to have a formal report. But what they're hearing is it's scattered, but there's some pockets of a lot of birds down already, which you would kind of expect given
we've
the
had
front
some good weather.
Yeah, for sure.
And it'd be interesting to hear people listening. If they want to text in or give us an update on if they're seeing any ducks, if they have any. Not like give us a location because, we're not going to try to go find a hunt. Butler may, but if it was turkeys, not
if
ducks.
it was turkeys.
Yeah.
I long ago, Reed, decided, when it comes to waterfowl, I enjoy it, and I'll go when people invite me, but you got to be pretty dedicated. You got to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Scout every week.
Well,
cold.
it's hard to do, and it's expensive too. I mean, there's no way around it unless you're utilizing a WMA or something like that, because
Yeah,
a lot of your duck properties on the private side those come with a pricey little price tag. So that's why you should take advantage of the public opportunities to hunt ducks in Mississippi. We do have them.
And this is one of those years, JT, where early winter water is very important. We've had a lot of waterfowl already come early in the season, and all of our WMAs that are waterfowl WMAs, we have water on. I was on Mahana last week and was able to see what was there. So this weekend should be very good for those hunters that are going to be utilizing our WMAs, because we already have a good number of ducks. And we're excited about that.
And that's a good point. I was talking to Houston this morning, just their general impressions from flying the surveys already. Because you saw the big front we had, you would think a lot of birds would be down, and he said there are, but what struck him was sort of the lack of water. Even though we've had some rain events here
I think
lately,
it happened a lot before people had stuff in to catch it,
right?
And it was there initially, and that now it's ran off, if you will.
Which is not unusual for this time of year.
Right.
Normally, things are going to get wetter as the winter goes on.
Just
but
remember,
I know we've had a lot of rain here in the last couple of weeks, you would think. But so if you've got water, which sounds like our WMAs do, they're going to be really good places.
And another thing I want people to make sure you know that all our state parks have a hunter special cabin rate. If there's a WMA close by or places like that, you can go to mdwfp.com or call 1-800-467-2757. That's it's something really nice you can take advantage of. And a lot of the cabins are rustic, and it's like being at a deer camp. It's cool. It's you're out there and you're close to the WMA. You're where you need to be, and you can find those. Really will save you money. I mean, it's a good deal. It's a great deal and a good place. There's room for more than one. And I think every one of them's got a good old fireplace in them and things like that, so you can have a big time and enjoy yourself at our state parks. Get a hunter special on a cabin, and they have those for you, so you need to do that. Hey, we got a couple of minutes before we get started. Let's talk about the voluntary harvest reporting while we got some time here before we get into deer. This is so important for Russ and Will. I can't stress enough to give y'all more information. The voluntary harvest reporting. Tell us about it, guys, and how important this is.
Yeah, so JT, last spring we had mandatory check for wild turkeys, and that was very successful. Hunters participated in that, and we were very glad of that. And
it was a game changer for people like Adam.
That's right. It's going to give us data that we've never had before for wild turkeys, and we really need the same for deer. And so for this year, when they were building the app for Game Check for turkeys, they went ahead and built the functionality for white-tailed deer. And so this year we are kicking that off. It is voluntary, but we want to stress to hunters how so very important it is that they just take a few seconds, check that deer in, and give us that data, because in the age of CWD, in the age of potentially declining white-tailed deer numbers, we really need that data to help us drill down at a county and local level, so that we can make the best decisions for the resource as well as the hunters.
And I just want to add, JT, we're for the past couple of seasons we've been seeing decline in deer harvest. Where? All we have are numbers statewide. Is that decline happening uniformly across all counties? Not very likely.
Right.
So where is that? And if we could pick that up, the first year of data, it gives us some info. But once we have done this for a few years and we're able to look at trend data and see that a section of the state is showing a decline in harvest, and then we can begin investigation on why is it declining in that area. Managing CWD in North Mississippi right now, how will it affect our herd? How will it affect our harvest? If we don't know how many deer are coming out by county, we can't even measure that.
And that's what we need. I mean, that's the information that you need. And I'll be honest with you, gentlemen, and this is me talking in my opinion, I don't think it'll ever get through the legislature, because that's the last thing they want to vote on is wildlife bills. That's got a large portion to do with why they handed it off to the commission, which is a good thing. It's been a wonderful thing to not have to go through all the consternation of the legislative process to actually get some things done. hopefully at some point we can get a mandatory game check system here in Mississippi, not to be snooping on people, not to be knowing, because we know not everybody's going to do it even if it's mandatory, but what we are going to find out, what we are going to know, is we're going to learn more about the herd and where it is and where we need to work on it and how to set the bag limits better and how to make it better. And it's all about benefiting the hunters. Unfortunately, you do have people out there that think there's something nefarious about it. I don't know why those people think that, but we do want you to do it, folks. If you can, download the app. When you kill a deer, give them the information. It can't do it's nothing going to come of it but good for you and for the department and for the state of Mississippi when it comes to our deer herd. That's what it's all about. So if you can, do it. Mississippi Outdoors Radio brought to you by the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Got to get some questions here before we get to it. JT, my own property inside the city limits, legal for me to harvest giant buck in the neighborhood as long as I use a bow or crossbow and not a gun. Reed, what do you say?
They're going to need to check with that city to see if there's any ordinances that prohibit hunting or discharging weapons, deadly weapons or firearms. They're all kind of unique to the city. We don't have anything prohibiting it, but they need to check with the city.
Turned in the CWD sample on November 5th, still waiting for results at a normal wait time, Jonathan, Yallabusha County. It takes about 2 weeks, doesn't it? So you're about any day now.
Any day now. We're actually expecting results to come in early this week from a big load that was dropped off last week. So,
yeah. So there you go. And all right, let's get to it. Big day on Saturday, William. What are we looking for this year? Give me some predictions. I know I've seen a lot of deer already.
Oh, yes. The weather's been great. Colder than average, and we're looking at a great opening Saturday. I was just looking for Jackson here, the Weather Channel showing a little rain in the morning, but temps are going to be dropping that afternoon, sun coming out. It is going to be a really great opening day with the highs in the 50s. We should see a lot of deer movement. We've already seen a lot of deer movement this year.
And then, of course, we've already had a pretty good freeze, and depending
that
on where you are, how much acorns are on the ground.
So the acorn crop, we'll touch there first, JT. It's not as good as I first thought. After looking and talking to more people across the state, it seems really good in southeast and southwest. More moderate in central and north. Spotty. You'll find some trees with some acorns and some that have very few. But this freeze. You know, we had a record-breaking temps last week. So at my house in an hour north of Jackson, it was 17 degrees. That killed off a lot of vegetation early, and we're talking about tons and tons per acre of deer food that was annuals that would normally persist well into December. That is gone now. That's forcing deer to get up and move a lot. You're seeing more on the roadsides, on where the forbs are coming up there, more on the edges, and more in food plots. Deer, from all reports I'm getting across the state, deer are already hammering food plots. So they're moving. They're moving more because they're hungry.
Yeah, I got a buddy of mine got his down, and it's just mowed down.
That's right.
I mean, it's just mowed down is what it is.
Sounded like youth season went really well. Don't forget, we're right in the middle of the early primitive weapon antlerless only season right now. And I'm hearing a lot of good reports from that. A lot of deer have already been harvested. Talking to some of my DMAP clubs, and several are already at, 25 to even up to 50% of what they normally harvest in a year just with bow season, youth season, and this early primitive. So deer are moving.
We'll move a question in and out. Got a lot of people responding today. How can I have my deer check for CWD if I want a skull mount? Good question.
Okay, so number one, they can find a taxidermist that we're working with. We're working with a lot of taxidermists across the state, and they're helping us in saving the heads after they've been caped, or in a few cases even helping us by pulling the samples. Also, if they don't have a taxidermist that's working with us near them, they can call us and we can pull that sample. So if it's a skull mount, then they're not worried about saving the cape. So they can meet up with one of us. They could call our Jackson office, find somebody close to them, and be able to arrange a time with us to get that sample pulled. But I highly encourage the taxidermist, the ones that we're working with, for them to find some of those. Ask their taxidermist, is he working with us?
Talking about last couple of years and the harvest, let's talk about it, the after the fact estimates and different things like that.
So the past 2 years have been the lowest deer harvest on record since we began keeping records. So the 17 and the 18 seasons were the lowest on record. And is that because of deer decline? It's partially so, but also we had some regulations that actually reduced antlerless harvest across the state. Bag limits dropped. Opportunity on public land dropped. We had a lot of flooding in the Delta, which shut down seasons early. The bottom line is there's a lot of deer out there right now, and I think the herd has definitely grown over the past few years. We've been running spotlight counts on the National Forest, and in just about every case, we're seeing those numbers have increased in the past couple of years, just since we did them last year. So a lot of deer left out there. A lot of deer have gotten a year or two older because of this.
And, of course, if we had mandatory checking, if we would know, we could get a lot better data, especially down on the county level. And
That's
would give us
exactly
what we
right.
need.
Hopefully we will soon.
What about big deer? There been any already taken this year?
Some kids have been hitting them pretty hard last weekend. Deer were moving well. A lot of really good deer taken in archery season. So far, not out of the expected areas. You always hear about a few big deer out of Southwest, out of the Delta, along the Big Black Corridor, that Blackland Prairie. That tends to be the areas we expect, and the data shows that we harvest the biggest deer in the state. But we're expecting to see more of that this year in areas that are not the norm, such as southeast Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. Donald says, my food plots have been hammered. Thought about hitting them with another round of fertilizer. Will that help? Probably not at this time.
You need to let this weather get a little bit warmer before. I don't know where he's at, but in the 50s, that fertilizer, they're not really actively growing until we get back up in the 60s. So, which it looks like we've got a few days of, but he can time it and put a little more fertilizer. Now, if he used legumes like clovers, probably want to be careful and not put too much nitrogen on them, or you can actually kill them.
Yeah. Talk about big deer. It was a good, or was this a good year for antler growth as far as they're concerned? We had a lot of rain.
We did have a lot of rain. We had a lot of rain all the way through the summer. We've had good vegetative growth, and then right at the end, right there in September, October, we hit a pretty bad drought over most of the state, and that seemed to have pulled a little body weight off of the deer. I'm getting remarks from a lot of clubs that body weight seemed to be a little down early, and not really a surprise considering we had that much of a drought and conditions hitting right before the season opened. But expect antlers to be above average this year.
It's probably safe to say that by that point, the antler development had done what it was going to do, right?
Antler development had hit peak. It had finished right there around late August, mid-August to late August over most of the state.
Courtney in Vicksburg's got a question. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yes, sir. I was wondering about how do you go about putting your land in like a tree program to grow trees?
A tree program. You probably need to get with the Forestry Service.
Yeah, there's several different options to go there, but you see a lot of those tree farm signs. When you're riding back roads around the state, probably the starting place for that's going to be your local county forester with the Mississippi Forestry Commission.
And there's one for every county.
Yeah, we also the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. We also have a private lands program, so we have biologists that'll come out and take a look at your property, and they can maybe help you at least get an idea of the process there.
All right, Courtney.
And also, I was going to ask one more question. Is it illegal to spotlight if you don't have a gun?
If it's on a public road, public right-of-way, it is. You can do it on your private property. You can shine, but you don't need to be riding in a vehicle doing that.
Yeah, you could be harassment of wildlife. And
correct.
You can get a ticket for that. All right, William, what part of the state's going to produce the biggest bucks? Where's it going to be a sleeper? Got about a minute.
The expectation is where we usually produce the biggest bucks along the Delta, although South Delta may be it won't be as likely this year due to the summer flooding or half the year flooding. But North Delta, Big Black Corridor, Blackland Prairie, Southwest near the Mississippi River, that's where we expect them to come from. But once again, I'm kind of thinking we've got too many older deer. You know, we lead the nation in the percent of older bucks, and no other state is harvesting as high a percent of 4-year-old and older bucks as we are. I got a feeling that we're going to see some sleepers pop up in counties that aren't known for big deer, are going to show some big deer this year.
Like where? You going to tell me? You going to give me a hint, or
I'm
you
just
can keep
gonna
this
say-
all to yourself? I mean, is this like? Come on, this is like betting on the ball game. This
I've
weekend.
seen too many
if
good
he-
pictures
There's a
out
good
of-
chance if he named a county that the road traffic people listening right now would go fill up and they'd go start riding trying to see it from the side of the road.
Try
And
to
that's just
figure it
me.
out. That's just
you
you.
know, that's my perspective on it.
I hope it is. I hope you're right, and I hope we do see one there. Russ Walsh is here with us, and we're going to talk about CWD when we come back, folks. And, of course, I already had that question earlier, Russ. He's the wildlife chief. Have there been any new CWD discoveries in the state so far with the new season? We'll address that. We'll address more with Russ when we come back. Here with us, Russ Walsh is here. Joining us. I don't know why I have such a hard time saying your name. Russ, thank you for being here, Chief of Wildlife, ready to go to work. And obviously people have been talking about CWD, and we can't talk about deer season without mentioning it, unfortunately. I thought so far the CWD plan's been working pretty good. Let's talk about the plans for this year.
Yeah, and let me back up just out of the gate here and brag on a couple of things. Number one, last year, the hunters, our goal last year was 5,000 samples, and we collected over 7,500 during deer season. So definitely want to brag on the hunters stepping up to the plate, submitting those samples. They recognize that this is an important issue for the resources of our state, and they did their part. And so this year, we hope they will continue to do that. Our goal this year is 10,000 samples. And thus far we have received over 600 samples. So we ask hunters, and we know after the guns really start this weekend that there will be a lot of deer that are harvested. So we ask hunters to continue to utilize our freezer locations around the state. Also, I just want to brag on our staff, law enforcement and Wildlife Bureau staff. Our Wildlife Bureau staff, did the lion's share of pulling all those samples last year. Really worked a lot of long hours, went a lot of miles. So did a lot of great work, yeoman's work there, and so they'll continue to do that for this season. Our goal is 10,000 samples this year. It's a lofty one. But again, we know that hunters in this state can step up to the plate and fill that role.
How's it been so far with the early part of the season as far as samples are concerned?
That's been good. Like I said, we're over 600 just since October the 1st, and so. We know we're about to get to the heavy lifting part here when it comes to deer season. And we have had 2 positives. One has been confirmed already since October. Another one is still with NVSL in Iowa, waiting on confirmation there. But we feel strongly that it will be confirmed as positive as well.
Have y'all released where it came from, the first one?
The first one is from Benton County,
okay.
Yes. So not far from where we have found other positive animals last deer season.
That's extreme north Mississippi.
You're right, on the Tennessee border, bordering where a lot of positives already are, North Tennessee, or Southern Tennessee, excuse me.
How, and I don't know if you can release the area of the other one or the one you think, but I think it's – I mean, I know I'm trying to be the glass is half full guy here on all this. I think it's pretty positive. I mean, I know North Mississippi is going to have its challenges from on further because we know Tennessee is. I'm not going to use the word infested, but it's very prevalent up there. And obviously, those deer are going to move into the northern counties, but it is somewhat positive that it has been limited to just there outside of the original deer that was found over in Issaquah County. I mean, I think that's positive. We haven't seen more there or anywhere else in the state.
Yeah, and so those that are isolated like Issaquah, we only have 2 there. We've had a lot of samples come from Issaquah County. And we have a few other areas like Tallahatchie and Panola where those are the only positives that we have found. And so those are areas that we certainly need to continue sampling. But with the number of samples that we have from those areas, we do feel like that the prevalence is low, particularly in Issaquah County. And that is a good thing. We want it to stay that way. North Mississippi, as you alluded to, is going to be a challenge within itself. But this is one of those issues, JT, where we harken back to the conservation success stories that we've already had in this state. Mm-hmm. This is just another conservation issue like others. The decline of deer, decline of turkey back in the early 1900s. We addressed those challenges, and we were successful. this is another one of those where hunters can step up to the plate and be a part of the solution. We cannot do this without hunters. So we ask them to continue to go out and harvest deer, continue to submit samples, and we can win against CWD, but we can't do it without hunters.
Well, and the key to it is us knowing. The more we know, the more we can find, and that's information. That's the data y'all need. And I know people. There are a lot of people don't like to hear about it, but when we talk about the Game Check as a voluntary system for this year, but every piece of information that y'all can get from hunters is going to help us battle CWD. If people can throw it, I hear all the excuses. I don't want my personal data out there. I don't. It ain't none of their business. They don't. It's by private land. I don't have to tell them. Folks, this is not about you. This is about trying to learn more about where we are. Nobody's going to do anything with you that's not out there. Chris Reed's not going to be going through there and looking at the list of everything that's come in and go see who I'm going to go visit next time. What we're talking about is learning how better to manage the herd, and especially for CWD right here. If for any reason, CWD.
And JT, as far as gathering data, we take the hunter's name and we take the phone number so that we can get back in touch with them. But this year we're asking hunters, we're putting maps. We got 36 drop-off freezers statewide. A lot of people still ask, how do I get a deer sampled? Well, you can go online, look at that list of drop-off freezers, drive to one of them with the deer's head. You drop it in a bag we provide, fill out a card that'll be there, drop it in the freezer. We're asking them within 1 square mile, 640 acres of where they harvested that deer. There are map books there, so we're not trying to get specific.
And folks, the key to this is the more we know, the better we're going to be able to deal with this problem with CWD. It's not going anywhere.
Look, JT, I'll testify to this. I've watched tens of thousands of samples plus come through our office over the last year and a half, and have seen the work that has been done by our staff. Nobody has been sitting around looking at where these deer are coming from or who's killed them or anything. What our staff has been focused on is the resource and how this impacts the resource, and that's what we're concerned about. It has to do with, just as you said, the data and the integrity of the data so that we can do the best job we can for the resource that has meant so much to us and is going to be vital for the future of what our kids and what they are allowed can hunt in the future.
Oh, our old buddy Jay from the Res wants to know if you kill a deer in a CWD zone, a mountable deer, and your taxidermist is not in the CWD zone, I think you're going to need to find a taxidermist in the CWD zone is what you're going to have to do, right? Yeah,
and you can run by that taxidermist and let them cape that deer out for you, probably for just a small fee, and then you can bring that skull or just the antlers, whatever it is you need to bring back to your taxidermist, you can bring that back to them as per the regulations. But we recognize that it may be a slight inconvenience, but think about it as doing the greater good.
And that's the bottom line. I've really been encouraged that we haven't seen it anywhere else, south of I-20 yet. That's encouraging. That's very encouraging to me. And I know we had some concern down there. That was actually one of our first concerns because of a pen where some deer got out after a tornado came through, and the fact that we haven't seen it down there. And that's why South Mississippi really needs to get on it too this year and make sure they sample as well, because we need to know.
Yes.
That's where we really need to learn something.
Our main goal with 10,000 samples is to figure out where this disease is. So right now we found it in 6 counties, but is it in more? Well, in the counties that are adjacent to those, it very well may be already in another county or two. But in order to try to fight the disease, we need to know where it is. So that's where we need hunters to turn in samples statewide.
Yeah. Someone wants to know why Bolivar County's not in the CWD management zone.
Well, per our CWD response plan, when we detect positives, we've gone out in a 25-mile radius around those positives, and that helps us to define the zone. So right now, Bolivar County, does not fall within one of those. Nothing to say that might not change, but right now we're going according to plan and setting those zones as we need to. And let me say real quick, I don't know if you mentioned a second ago, but Tennessee's found over 40 additional positives since their deer season started just several weeks ago.
Wow.
Which goes back to the importance of hunters stepping up and submitting those samples. They certainly have an issue on their hands, and we don't want our prevalence to be any higher than it already is. So that's why we need hunters to go out and harvest deer and submit those samples so that we can know just how bad it is and where it is.
No doubt about that.
JT, just to point out, just both of the positives we found have been in Benton County so far this year, the confirmed and the suspect. So
And that's very close to Tennessee. I was right there
both were
bordering.
within less than 1 mile of the Tennessee line.
Okay. Well, and you hate that.
We do.
You hate that, but unfortunately, that's just what we're going to have to deal with. That's what we got to deal with from this point further. All right, we're going to talk about. We'll answer a few more questions. We'll talk about Mississippi Outdoors TV. I know it's in the off season, but we'll tell them what's going on there, and if we can work a question or two in before we're done. Folks, I can't stress to you enough, if you kill a deer, take it and just take the head. They've got a bag right there for you. You tag it, you put it in the freezer. A couple weeks later, you're going to know if your deer is CWD free, and also for your conscience and also for the data that they need. Hey, Super Talk Mississippi Outdoors Radio. Adam, what you got on Mississippi Outdoors TV coming up?
This week, JT, from earlier
rerun.
this season, but I think it's one, if you missed it, you need to go back. We talked about it back in September, I think. The episode with the Call-Paw, I always mispronounce it, the Call-Paw Canoe Company. They're floating down the Mississippi. So it's really cool. A little bit outside the norm of just your straight hunting and fishing shows, but they're doing a lot of stuff floating from Rosedale to Greenville on the Mississippi River in those big homemade canoes they have over there. 4 days, 3 nights, nearly 100 miles on the Big Muddy. So really cool episode, folks, to check out. And that's Mississippi Outdoor Television, Thursday nights at 7:30 on MPB, and then it re-airs Saturdays at 5:30. And we'll be back to having new episodes after the first of the year, I believe.
Can I throw something out there for people that are listening that's kind of going along with this on the Mississippi River? Just because there's a lot of ducks on the river and you want to go shoot them, if you've never been on the river before, don't just go out there at dark, daylight to go find them. Please, that happened this weekend. We had an incident up there in this part of the world where some youth hunters had went and they got stranded. They'd never been on the river ever before in their life, and they went out there. That place is that's not a body of water that you just run out there aimlessly on there and think you're going to figure it out. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that river. It's not a place to play, and they had to be rescued. And so just be mindful of that. If you're thinking about giving a wild hare, go have a wild hare somewhere else.
Well, it's an intimidating piece of water. There's no doubt about that. Someone said, I know the tests are to find where CWD is, but what are you doing to control it? And he said, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. I'm just wondering. I don't know if you can control it. Can you, Russ?
So, a big part of this is some of the increase in opportunity that are available this hunting season, increase in antlerless bag limits. So it went from 3 to 5 in all zones but the southeast zone. A part of what can be done is by reducing deer density. And, sometimes that's unpopular to talk about, but the fact of the matter is that reducing deer density can help slow the spread of CWD. And so we're allowing more opportunity this year for hunters to harvest antlerless deer, as well as, one of the $3 bag limit this year can be a buck of choice. And the reason that is that we know that yearling bucks are the dispersing deer, and if they have CWD, they may be carrying it to previously uninfected areas. And so allowing the harvest of yearling bucks, we need those samples, and we may be able to possibly slow the spread of CWD by allowing increased harvest as well as younger age class bucks. So there are things that can be done, and one of those first steps is an increase in harvest.
when Scott says that supplemental feeding is illegal in the CWD zone, why not be proactive and make supplemental feeding illegal statewide? Also believe harvest numbers go up because the deer won't be as nocturnal. May I answer that question? That would have to come from the commission or the legislature for that to happen. That's not something that you guys can do. That would be something commission-wide. I think if you probably took a poll in here, I would imagine we would probably be in agreement with you. I know I would be. Just because of this, but that's something that would be handled by the commission or the legislature. That's not something that Russ can do. You can only do what you can do with the CWD zones that they've granted you the authority to do.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And so everybody's got their opinions on that. We all have different opinions on that. I wasn't for it when they started it years ago, but that was just me. Now, I'm not going to say that I haven't done it or hunted in a place that's done it. I'm not about to. I'm not going to say that. I just said that I wish that we could do it. Where can we take deer to be tested in the Purvis area? Go to the website, mdwfp.com. I don't have one right here. Paul from Starkville says JT or
Yeah, I believe there is a test facility in the city of Purvis.
Fire station at Purvis. At the fire station at Purvis is the CWD drop-off in Purvis.
Are the CWD deer eatable? Paul from Starkville. Well, the Centers for Disease Control out of Atlanta suggests that you do not eat a deer that is tested positive for CWD.
That is correct, JT.
That does not come from you guys. That's not something y'all said. That is from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. Mm-hmm.
But JT, I mean, one thing about that's just good common sense for any disease.
Sure.
If you take any animal that is obviously ill, sick, suffering from some kind of abnormality, I mean, that's just a good common sense approach. Probably not something you want to serve to your family.
That's correct.
And JT, I want to point out one thing before our time's up.
We've got just a few
this summer,
seconds.
Mississippi State helped host a CWD roundtable in which we were able to invite in Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, Arkansas, other surrounding states. Those that I listed were speakers that have been battling CWD for years, and we're pulling off of knowledge. So we're not just trying to go at this by ourselves. We're trying to pull knowledge from people that have been battling this for decades and brought them here. Listen to what they had to say. Let them look at our situation. So this is a large-scale, well, we're not trying to go at it on our own. I'll just say it that way.
Right. Well, you can learn your best from people that have dealt with it before and people that experienced it. Russ, William, thank you for being here. Adam, Major Reed, thank you for being here. And y'all have good luck this weekend. Deer season opens this weekend. Please report your deer, folks.
And go hunting.
And go hunt and report your deer. All right, it'll help so much. Super Talk Mississippi. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.